Welcome to the Way to Go podcast. I'm Bill McMinn from Eagleville Bible Church. Along with me is Adam Page, also a pastor of Eagleville Bible Church. And one of the things that I wanted to tackle here out the gate was the Congress made this new law about gender neutral language. So not affecting what a senator might say from the floor of the House, but saying what would be written in any laws that you can't use the word. I'll just read it.
All right.
That'll make it, I think, more clear. And this was out of the Wall Street Journal. I'm picking this up. On Monday, the Democratic-controlled lower chamber voted along party lines to approve new official language guidelines. Words such as himself and herself are to be replaced by themselves. Out with father, mother, son, daughter, brother, sister, uncle, aunt, and other family terms. And in with parent, child, sibling, and so forth. And incensed Kevin McCarthy, the Republican minority leader, tweeted that the changes are stupid, which is true but incomplete. Now, the Wall Street Journal goes on to say this. Mrs. Pelosi is obviously attempting to placate the progressives in her caucus. However, it's also another example of how the political left today demands not only tolerance, but endorsement. You can't disagree respectfully, let alone agree to or not to agree. It's bad enough when our colleges and universities enforce what amount to speech codes or indulge efforts to shield students from dissenting viewpoints. Now we have lawmakers in Washington offering a kind of federal imprimatur. I don't even know if I said that right here. On limiting free expression. The next time Republicans control the House, they can and should reverse these changes. There's little evidence that anyone beside the far left elites are obsessed with gender neutral vocabulary. So I read that and say, okay, to make everyone happy, to please, some of the transgender thinking. And I went to a lot of websites looking up terms because I was trying to figure out what transgender would call a boys soccer team. So I still couldn't figure that out. I'm like, well, how would you distinguish the boys team from the girls team unless you wouldn't have either team and it'd be all I don't even know. So the children's team, I guess. So I was thinking about stuff like that. So I went to actually a lot of sites to see, and they really do press this. Yeah. Like, don't say mom, dad. Though they would even go as far as don't say your boyfriend or girlfriend. That's your date mate.
Your date mate. That's a new one. I haven't heard about it.
Yeah, your date mate. And then when it gets serious, then they're your significant other. But never say boyfriend or girlfriend. Just don't say boy, don't say girl. Because for some reason that's, I don't know, clumsy or offensive. And so that when I read that kind of stuff, of course, I look at this like I have a lot of things in my many years on the planet so far and thought, seriously, that's ridiculous. And yet you'll see it get more and more of a foothold. Yeah. And as soon as now they're going to make this along Congress, it won't be long, in my estimation, if this is important to them, they're going to start pressing this on schools. They're going to start coming into the Jefferson area local schools, let's say, teaching the little kids, don't say the word mom, don't say the word dad, just say parent. And that's my concern. Why do we have to change that language? What in the world is wrong with acknowledging there are boys and girls?
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with separating them out. I mean, that's the way that God did it. I mean, I know in California, teachers, friends of mine, have said that they can't line up kids in a boy line or a girl line. They have to do tallest to shortest or youngest to oldest or something of that nature, right? Which is it's so unbelievable right now that this is the culture that we are being forced to live in and abide by to an extent.
And right now it's rhetoric, and the law probably, I would imagine they will pass because they have the majority in the Senate and in the House of Representatives. So I imagine it will pass. But when you're saying this is important to us, the government of the United States is saying, hey, this is so important to us, that's going to start coming our way. It's not our way yet, but it's only a matter of time before, we're going to be wrestling through. And I would say in the next 4 years, you're going to see a lot of discussion about gender neutral bathrooms. Do businesses or schools have to add a third bathroom for transgender, so on and so forth? I have questions like, okay, well, because I'm one of those people, I'm going to follow thinking to the nth degree. So I look at, what happened in Washington, D.C., where they have a big January 6th get-together. Trump speaks. A bunch of them raid the White House, or the Capitol, excuse me. And I look at that and say, okay, well, let's follow this thinking out to the nth degree. If you're allowed to do it there, then you're allowed to come to church and do it. You're allowed to go to the mall and do it. You're allowed to go to a hospital and do it. You're allowed to go to a school and do it. And the nth degree, as you follow it out, it just doesn't really work out. So I'm going to take this thinking to the nth degree and say, okay, well, let's take it out to the nth degree. Does that mean we don't have Father's and Mother's Day anymore?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Because if you're going to only have gender neutral terms when it comes to a birth certificate, will there no longer be a father and a mother? Will it be parent one, parent two? Like thing one, thing two, and Cat in the Hat? Well, is it going to be parent one and parent two?
I think it is. I think you're going to see that. I mean, with the obvious of Ellen Page becoming Elliot Page, and how much she was celebrated in her transition to becoming a guy. I think we're seeing that in our society today. Like you were talking about with the bathrooms, I think it is going to become like we see in Starbucks, where there isn't really a gender on the door. It's open to anybody. They can come in there. And I think we're entering a world where we're going to see a lot of change like this. And we might see
but
Parents'
I don't mind
Day.
that. Like, I don't mind Starbucks having a bathroom that anyone can go into, because when I go there, okay, well, that makes it convenient for me. So, I mean, to me, I see some good in it. Where I would be uncomfortable is if you take a bathroom with 10 stalls, 5 stalls, whatever, and then it's both, either or. I would feel really awkward for me personally. Yeah, I feel awkward using public bathrooms anyway. Let's face it. I'm really going to feel awkward if it's guys and girls at the same time. And I think, too, like, okay, no more king and queen of the court then.
Yeah.
Because those are terms that would indicate male, female. And so I look at these things and I think how ludicrous it is, how ridiculous our thinking. Like, we live in a society that doesn't want to tell anyone no. Mm-hmm. We want to create a bouncy house where no one gets hurt. So you'll take, in our society, I say it all the time, they will take a fringe sliver of people and how they think. They will drive everyone to match that thinking, to placate it so that small fringe isn't upset, and totally tromp on the majority.
Yeah.
Tromp on our feelings. Doesn't matter how we feel. Doesn't matter what we think. They're going to step all over it. You look at what God says. God says in Genesis 1:27, God created mankind in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. And by the way, in the new language, you can't use mankind. You have to use humankind, but it still has the word man in it, so I don't really see what you accomplished. You know what I'm saying? Like they say, don't use mankind, but you can use humankind, but it still has the word man. So, but that's what they're suggesting. Because like I said, I've been to the sites and I've looked at, different. I Googled it. I do what I do. That's how I learn stuff. I Google stuff. So I Googled it up and I looked at it because I was trying to figure out, well, what would you call this person? What would you call that person? So if you can't use the word uncle and aunt, like I was really wondering, well, what would I say?
What do you call them?
Your parent's sibling. So you don't distinguish which parent, because you can't say mom or dad. So that's going to add confusion. And then you don't say if it's an aunt or an uncle, you just say sibling. So people really don't know who you're talking about. So I guess you'll just have to throw names out there and then they would possibly know if they knew your family. But I look at this kind of stuff, and here's the argument that I've heard. Because I look at birth and I'm like, there are 2 genders. You're a boy or a girl. That's XY chromosome. That's science. But they go, well, now they're dividing your sex from your gender. So they're saying, well, sure, you're born a certain sex, so you're born a boy or a girl, but gender is so much more complicated. And gender, listen, I quote now, gender identity is more of an inner sense of being male, female, or somewhere in between. Regardless of physical anatomy, it may be influenced by genetics and other factors. It is more about the brain than your sex organs. And transgender is a term accepted across science and medical groups to mean people whose gender identity doesn't match what Rafferty calls their sex assigned at birth. So this is how now they're getting around the science part of it.
So God made a mistake.
Not that he made a mistake. It's just like, well, no, you can still be a boy or girl, but feel like you're different. You can be a boy who feels like he's a girl, or girl feels like he's a boy. So we're going to go by your feelings and your inner sense. So my question would then be, okay, well, then I should be able to change my race based on inner sense. If I feel like I'm Asian or Hispanic, then I should be able to be that. Or if I feel like I'm 35, which I do, then I should just be able to legally change my age. But we all know that's impossible because it doesn't match the fact.
Yeah, that's true.
So I think there's a ton of confusion. And we're not talking about, by the way, and I want to clarify this for the record. I am not against gender neutral words. Like if they want to take chairman or mailman and they want to call the mailman the mail carrier, and they want to call the chairman the chair, I don't care about that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Seaman goes to seafarer. Okay, I'm not arguing about any of that kind of stuff. That doesn't bother me because, we recognize a lot of women are in the workforce too, as well as men. And so the chairman might be a woman. So you just call it the chair. An actor and actress. Well, let's just call them all actors. That kind of stuff for me, I don't really have an issue with. But when you're starting to say that you can actually change your gender, that somehow it's fluid because maybe a girl's a tomboy,
I think there's a big difference between gender equality of, having women do the same thing that men can do, like you were talking about, like a male person,
right.
To the point of gender blurring, where you can't tell whether it's a person. It kind of makes me think of the old SNL skit, "It's Pat."
Yeah,
you don't know who it is. You don't want to offend them, and it's kind of like that in our society today. That everything is unisex, and a lot of the kids that are born today, have names like Apple and different things, and you can't really figure out what is the actual gender that's going on. I think a lot of parents are doing that on purpose so the kid can figure out what gender they want to be, instead of understanding that that's what they were assigned at birth.
Well, you're really in trouble because you're named after the first man that was born.
Yeah.
So there's no question as what Adam means. And honestly, I think you should change that name, Adam. That offends me. It offends me. It's too mannish for me. No, I'm just kidding. But here's the one thing in our society where I really think that the article had it dead on. It's not just about tolerance, it's about endorsement. And where I buck on stuff is like, yeah, I can tolerate things I don't agree with all day long. I do, and I have for my whole life. But I can't endorse everything. And when you're making me endorse things or trying to that I just don't agree with, that's where it starts breaking apart to me, because we should be able to, as a society, agree to disagree. And if somebody's offended because I use the word mom or dad, get over it. You know what I'm saying? I should be allowed to call my mom, and I should be allowed to call dad, and my uncle and aunt and brothers and sisters and so on and so forth. I call people bro all the time.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're, that's just not language, we should be using. And I look at it like, why not? I should be able to say Merry Christmas. If you don't want to say it back, you don't have to. I'm not bent out of shape. I celebrated the birth of Jesus Christ at Christmas. I'm not making you do it, but don't make me feel bad about doing it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I should be able to celebrate it, and if you want to, that's up to you. I don't care if anyone else in the world celebrate it. I do, but let's say if no one agrees with me in my whole state about celebrating the birth of Christ, I'm still going to celebrate the birth of Christ and be quite happy doing so. I don't need everyone to go along with me. I don't need everyone else to be a photographer to enjoy photography. I don't need everyone else to be running on the trail for me to enjoy running. It's just something I like to do. So why can't we be that as Americans?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's kind of a slippery slope as we go from having something we disagree with and asked to be tolerant towards it, then asked to endorse it, and then people being angry because we don't celebrate it.
Right.
And I think we've gotten to that point right now with this, that you got to tolerate it, then endorse it. And I'm saying, like, I'm not going to tolerate it. I'm not going to endorse it, and I'm never going to celebrate it.
Right.
That my mom will always be mom, dad will always be dad, and my kids will always be girl or boy.
Right.
That, because that's what the Word of God says. And I think when it comes to that, when you come against the Word of God, then I say, okay, that's where we draw the line.
Right.
And I say, okay, I love you, but I disagree with you.
Well, the thing is, where it comes to play in our society, where I see is when it comes to like our definition of marriage between a man and a woman. So we wouldn't agree with same-sex marriage. So what? I don't have to agree with it. I think it's like saying two left gloves are a pair. No, a left and a right glove are a pair. They're redefining it. Okay, they did, and they can. I don't have to agree with it for them to be happy. You know what I'm saying? They can have a happy life, and know that, hey, Bill loves me. He doesn't agree with me. He loves me because guess what? I don't agree with people who commit adultery. I don't agree with that. I don't agree with lying. I don't agree with a lot of things. Doesn't mean I don't love sinners. It just means that I just don't agree with it. And I think that it's ludicrous, and we're coming into a lot of polarization in our country because we don't allow people to disagree. We can't stand people disagreeing. You disagree with someone about mask and wearing masks, you're going to get unfriended. You're going to get vicious arguments about it. Why can't we say, well, this is kind of how I feel, but I respect how you think. I respect people who wear masks. I'm going to respect people if they're legitimately scared and they want to be in their basement and they're consistent about it. I don't respect inconsistency, but if you're consistent about it, I'm going to respect that, because you're allowed to think that way.
I think it really, kind of weirded out one of my friends on Facebook. He wanted to argue about something and just kept going back and forth with me on it. And I finally wrote to him and said, you know what? We can disagree with this and still be friends.
Right.
It's okay. You can have your viewpoint on it. We don't have to all agree on Facebook. We can disagree about different things. We can endorse and celebrate things, and we don't have to agree upon it. We're not in a dictatorship. We're in a democracy, and sometimes I think we forget that.
Right. No, I agree. And for a democracy to work, there has to be tolerance is what we should expect. I should expect this. People don't agree with my beliefs as a pastor. but you can allow me to exist here.
Yeah.
And you can allow me to have church and preach the Bible and sing the songs we want to sing. And you don't have to agree with me, but you shouldn't be here trying to shut me down and smashing my windows out, and that would be wrong. And I shouldn't be burning your house down because I don't agree with you, or making you feel less or anything else. I don't think that's the way that it works. That's not the way Christianity was designed or set up.
Yeah.
Christianity was a kind of a grassroots thing where it spreads out like kind of the mustard seed, which grows into a powerful tree. You know, you plant that seed takes root in people's hearts and lives, people change, and that's how we see it. As the Holy Spirit's working on people, you see people change. We would rather be at that grassroots level. I don't expect the government to defend my beliefs. I don't accept to allow them, but I don't expect them to champion them. I don't need the government to champion me. I don't need the high schools to champion Christian belief. I don't need my community leaders to champion me. No. I just need them to give me a place. That's all I want. I just want a place in the arena of ideas to compete. That's all I want. Yeah. I don't need you to be championing. So why would you expect me to champion every cause out there? I don't think it's possible.
No, I don't think it's possible. I'm against their overreach into our lives, where they say, you know, hey, you can go ahead and do this, but you have to go with our terms. Right. And these are the things that you can teach on in church, and these are things you can preach on, and this is when you can attend church and what you need to have on if you're going to attend church. You know, I think that's not, when you look at the Pilgrims and you look at those who started our country, I don't think that's what they looked at all. It was religious freedom and religious liberty that they were trying to get away, you know, trying to have, you know, and that's, you know, what America is founded upon, and that we should be able to have that and to be able to celebrate our belief systems, you know, and that's okay if we don't agree upon it, you know, everybody's, you know, and that's fine, you know, and that's part of what America is.
Right. But I mean, I make a common sense statement about, hey, we should be a law and order as Christians, and we should follow the laws of the land, which doesn't include invading the Capitol building. Yeah. Christians argue about that. To me, it's like, I'm not even looking at Facebook this morning. Like I don't even know if I'll look at Facebook all day, because I just don't want to deal with the argument, because there shouldn't be any argument about that. That's a biblical statement. Christians should not be arguing with a biblical statement about following the laws of your land. You shouldn't, because we're not talking about disobeying God. It's clear in the Bible that you put God first. So why are we arguing about these things? So I don't, you know, and that, but you know what? That's America, and that's just how it is. Now, when it comes to gender and respecting, I think we should celebrate the differences. You know, I have two girls. Both of them are different. One was definitely more of a tomboy. Hooded sweatshirts and jeans, they'd probably be happy in that forever. My other one would, and they'll still wear nice stuff. My other one is definitely, you know, make sure every hair is just right and looks good and makeup's right. And the other one doesn't even wear makeup, I don't think. So they're two different people. They're both girls, right? You know, they're both females and have no problem. They're different, and that's okay. And then there's the son, and there's me and the way I think as a guy, and there's the way my wife thinks as a gal. Celebrate some of those differences. I don't think we should try to erase them. I think we should appreciate them.
I think, you know, it's appreciating what people look like, and that them being themselves and who God's created them to be. You know, no matter what your size is, no matter what color skin you have, you know, no matter how big or small you are, or thin or tall you are, being able to celebrate that, know that, you know, one of the things that we talked about last night in Awana in our kids ministry was, who does God say that I am? And God says, you know, if we have a relationship with him, then we're a child of the King. We're a child of God, and that's who we are. You know, our image shouldn't be defined on who's the best looking influencer on Instagram, you know, or do I look like this, you know, this amazing person that's on TV, or, you know, do I look like that guy on Men's Health magazine? You know, am I a child of the King, and am I acting like it? Am I being an ambassador of Christ? You know, as a man of God. You know, and I think that's what, you know, Scripture calls us to do.
Yeah, and I don't think there's anything wrong with encouraging our boys to be boys. Or girls to be girls. I'm not saying, girl, you have to play with a doll. I was never that kind of dad. I was never the kind of dad to say, my son, you're going to play football or you're going to play sports. So no, if you're more talented in music or writing or whatever, you know, I was happy to encourage you, whatever you're talented to be. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. But I've witnessed in different cities that I've traveled to and different places that I've been, even as a speaker, I've seen a lot of incredible softness. And I wonder sometimes, where does this come from? Are we just like being overly protective? Are we just sheltering and babying some of our young men so much that they're having a hard time figuring out what a man is? I don't know.
think so.
Now in this county, I don't see it much. Like in this county, I was a soccer coach. I'm going to tell you what, I saw nothing like that. Those guys, they were all rough and tumble, every one. I see it in our church, Eagleville Bible Church. I see a lot of men. You know, there's no doubt here. But in other places I've traveled, I've been to more in the city, then I've seen some of it more, where I'm just a little bit concerned about them. Like, hey, guys, don't be afraid to be a guy. Girl, don't be afraid to be a girl. Let's celebrate some of those differences. And also, let's not be afraid if a young lady wants to go out and be more tomboyish, that's okay too, right?
Yeah.
You know what I
Definitely.
mean? And if your boy wants to keep his hair perfectly neat and dress nice, that's nothing wrong with that either. That's not what we're talking about with gender. But there are clear differences.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've taken my girls down the boy aisle at Target and tried to get them to buy boy toys, but the only thing so far they've been interested in is Nerf guns. So that was the best part of Christmas.
Well, that is. Nerf guns are fun.
Oh, they
fun. Are a blast. Absolutely. So yeah. So I don't think that, we're talking about forcing any, particular thing on there, but at the same time, we're recognizing there are differences. I'm a man, and as the last thing I'll say before we're done, as a guy, I do have that one-track mind, meaning that my brain's on whatever I'm doing. And my wife would say, watch, I'd take Cassie out in the garden with me all the time. Watch, you're going to watch her. Yep, I want to watch her. Next thing I know, I forgot I even have a kid, because I got to weeding a tomato plant or corn or whatever it is, and my daughter's 3 houses down. And my wife is all ticked at me, which she should be ticked at me because my kid's running all over the neighborhood, and I'm not paying one lick of attention because I was out there for 5 minutes and forgot I had a kid. That's being a guy too. I gotta understand that. Yeah, that's one of my guy hardships. I'm not a great multitasker. But anyway, hopefully this has been helpful to you. We hope that you have a great and awesome week.